Good morning. Welcome to this morning's webinar on traffic control planning for equipment dealers. My name is Ryan Bast of the Motor Safety Association, and I'd like to welcome you all to taking the time to join us for this morning's webinar. This is actually the 20th webinar that we've done in conjunction with the Western Equipment Dealers Association, which have all been posted to our website. You may have noticed that all the microphones are muted except mine, and we do that to minimize background noise during the webinar. However, if you do have any questions, I encourage you to enter them into the question box, and after the webinar I will take a look at the questions and answer them at that time. So as we start, I'll go through a brief introduction of traffic control planning for equipment dealers. I'll go through vehicular traffic and high visibility requirements. I will touch on traffic control for public highways, as well as traffic control for dealerships or service calls. And we'll go over some methods and devices that can be used for traffic control planning, as well as we'll wrap up with some action items and a conclusion. So let's get started. A little bit about the Motor Safety Association is we assist businesses in Saskatchewan that sell or service anything with a motor or steering wheel, and we help those businesses with various safety services and programs such as the ones itemized on the slide. So instead of me telling you more about ourselves, I encourage you to check out our website or follow us on Twitter for more information about the Motor Safety Association. Some of you may remember in March of 2016, Matt from the Western Equipment Dealers Association sent out this letter discussing the need for traffic control plans and high visibility requirements for dealerships. This webinar today is a direct response to that letter to provide you with information and provide you with samples and templates to assist you in traffic control planning. And when we looked at the information further to Matt's letter, we reviewed the Workers' Compensation Board stats for Saskatchewan and looking at transportation incidents specifically for Saskatchewan agricultural dealerships from 2011 through 2015, there were 800 days lost due to transportation incidents, and all of these derived from 19 WCB claims, which tallied over just over $318,000 in costs from the Workers' Compensation Board. So you can see this need to discuss traffic control planning when we see this amount of transportation incidents, days lost, and costs in the province of Saskatchewan from 2011 through 2015 for agricultural dealerships. And further to this, there are other incidents that happened that would have been covered by SGI, which I wouldn't have the information for. So there's likely way more than this that have occurred. So as we go through that first section, I'm going to touch now on vehicular traffic and high visibility requirements in section 2. And an employer or contractor shall ensure that a worker who is at risk from vehicular traffic, whether on a public highway or at any other place of employment, is provided with and required to use a high visibility vest, armlets, or other high visibility clothing. And all provinces that are represented by WIDA have their own legislation around this topic. However, for the sake of this webinar, I will utilize Saskatchewan legislation, but it is similar to the other provinces. You may have noticed that I've bolded and highlighted vehicular traffic. And just to give you some more information, vehicular traffic is any piece of powered mobile equipment that is moving, whether it be a forklift, a tractor, a truck, a combine, a sprayer, a car. Those are all examples of vehicular traffic. And this regulation, it applies to whether you're on a public highway, in your shop, on a service call, or in your dealership lot. Essentially, any location that your worker works, where there is vehicular traffic, they need to be supplied with either a high visibility vest, armlets, or other high visibility clothing as itemized on this slide. So let's talk a little bit about those different clothing options. The first one mentioned was a high visibility vest. And if you are purchasing a high visibility vest, it is the best practice to purchase a high visibility vest that meets the CSA standard. Although that is not clearly identified in the Saskatchewan regulations, that would be the best practice if you are purchasing a high visibility vest to seek something that meets the CSA standard. The other clothing option was mentioned was armlets, and the regulation says armlets with an S, not armlet. So you cannot just wear one armlet to meet this regulation. And just to ensure if you are wearing armlets that they are fitting snugly. I was at a dealership a few months ago and they were wearing armlets, but they were so loose they were like bracelets sliding around on the workers' arms. And the regulation does leave it quite open when it mentions other high visibility clothing, and such things as high visibility straps. We see those sometimes used perhaps for salespeople or parts people or administrative staff that wear these high visibility straps to meet this regulation. However, if you are wearing these straps, ensure that they are fitting snugly so that you do not create another hazard by wearing these too loosely. And there's high visibility caps. I was at the equipment dealership a couple days ago and they implemented high visibility caps where they put their dealer logo on the front of them and they were wearing those caps throughout the course of their work time. And that is another type of high visibility clothing that can be used. And some dealerships have ordered coveralls with high visibility striping built right into them. Something you may consider is being proactive with your coverall supplier. Do not wait until you get an OHS contravention to implement a high visibility clothing policy. If you are in a contract with your coverall supplier, it may be best to contact them now to ensure they can meet this need for you. Let's go to Section 3, Traffic Control on Public Highway. And where there is danger to a worker from vehicular traffic on a public highway, an employer or contractor shall develop and implement a traffic control plan in writing to protect the worker from traffic hazards by the use of one or more of the following. And let's look at what those followings are. Those can be warning signs, barriers, lane control devices, flashing lights or flares, conspicuously identified pilot vehicles, automatic or remote control traffic control systems, or designated signalers. And so these are items that may be included in your traffic control plan. You may use some of these or all of these. And I will go on to explain and itemize each of these further in Section 5 in the webinar. So once again, to clarify, where there is a danger to a worker from vehicular traffic on a public highway, a written traffic control plan needs to be in place and can include the items on this slide. So Section 4, this pertains to traffic control, whether it be in your shop, your dealership buildings, on your yard site, or when your technicians are on service calls. So that's what this Section 4 pertains to. So let's look at what that says. Where there is or may be a hazard to a worker from traffic at a place of employment other than a public highway, an employer or contractor shall develop and implement a traffic control plan to protect the worker from traffic hazards. So again, it needs a traffic control plan. And this is applicable whether it be in your shop, on your dealership yard, in your lot, or on a service call. So this is quite broad and open, essentially any place where workers are exposed to vehicular traffic that is not on the highway. And in all these situations, a traffic control plan is in fact required. So there are some items that should be in your traffic control plan, And further to those, having your traffic control plan documented and readily available. Workers should also learn about the traffic control plan during their orientation. And the plan should list maximum allowable speeds of any vehicle or class of vehicles, including powered mobile equipment in the use of this place of employment. And again, these parameters need to be proactively planned and communicated ahead of time. And the plan must also cover the maximum operating grades. This pertains to the slope of your dealership yard or surface or the work area that they're working in, the location and type of control signs, such as where the signs will be posted and what type of signs will be used, and the route to be taken by vehicles or powered mobile equipment, ensuring the route is clearly marked with signage and understood. And further to that, a worker who operates a vehicle or unit of powered mobile equipment at a place of employment and who does not have a clear view of path to be traveled shall not proceed until a person who has a clear view of path to be traveled by the vehicle or unit of powered mobile equipment signals to the worker that it is safe to proceed. So this is really another item that you should include in your traffic control plan, the concern of a clear view of sight. What if I'm backing up a combine out of your dealership building or your shop? Is a signaler used or in place? Or sometimes on equipment, the windows may fog up or the windshield is cracked. These variables limit the clear view of sight and require the need for a signaler. I actually knew of an automobile dealership that drove into their dealership shop and they hit a fellow employee with a car because their windows fogged up and they could not see and they were not using a signaler. So again, this section really outlines the requirement for utilizing a signaler that can assist if you do not have that clear view of path or sight when moving a piece of powered mobile equipment. So let's look at section 5, traffic control planning, methods and devices. So the items in this slide are possible devices or methods you can use in your traffic control planning efforts. And you may use some of these methods individually or a combination of a few of these methods. But with that being said, be sure that people are trained on how to use any of these methods or devices in the upcoming slides if they in fact are a part of your traffic control plan. The first one being signalers or using signals. Ensure that the signals are easily understood by the person sending the signals as well as receiving the signals. Be sure that the signals are consistent and people do have training and they understand what the signals mean. I've just put a couple of different signals on the slide to give you some samples of different signals that can be used. And there are different signaling courses or samples available that one can use. Some other courses available people could take is there's a certified flag person provincial training course. And where this would be handy is, imagine in the event of a piece of farm equipment being driven down the road or on a highway, and it quits, and it cannot be towed or moved, and a technician may need to repair it where it stands. Therefore, having a flag person alerting traffic may be part of this traffic control plan to assist or other methods utilized in the event of a piece of equipment broken down on the side of the highway or a roadway. Another item that could be used are flashing lights or flares. These, of course, are used in low light situations, but within your traffic control plan, these would be a great device. However, I do recommend just to ensure that these devices are inspected and in good working condition prior to when you need them most. Speed bumps. These could be quite handy as a method of controlling traffic. If these are placed strategically within your dealership yard, this can help slow down traffic as well so that people aren't going through at increased speeds through your dealer parking lot. And within your dealer parking lot, how many of you have designated parking spots set up? Having designated parking spots helps with traffic control planning, so designated vehicles are parked only in the appropriate areas or designated areas that they should be in. Then there's the opportunity to use signage as part of your traffic control planning methods or devices. And signage is fairly self-explanatory, but what I do want to mention is not to include so much verbiage in the sign that people have to come right up to it and it takes them 2 minutes to read it. But having a sign that's clear and effective and gets to the point and it's communicated quite easily is what you're looking for when you are utilizing signage. And again, just ensure any signage that you use is posted in a clearly visible area. So you don't want your sign that's perhaps behind a tree or behind a tractor where people cannot clearly see it. So get that signage out in a visible area and make sure the message is clear and easily understood. Then there's the opportunity to use barriers to limit traffic. And you can use this to limit traffic in certain areas of your dealership lot or building. So you can block off a certain area of your lot that you don't need people accessing. Or we primarily see these utilized in overhead doorways of dealership buildings or shops. So this is great because you can have this set up so that only staff that have received powered mobile equipment training are the ones moving equipment in and out of your facility when you have barriers in place. So that limits who can bring equipment in and out of your shop. And it also keeps customers from coming in an open overhead door hazard and coming into your facility. And in my opinion, these barriers do look a lot better than a piece of rope or a chain that's run across the doorway. Those are good as well, but these barriers do look a lot more professional and they are very effective as well. So designated routes can also be part of your traffic control plan. Perhaps having a separate entrance gates or different routes to limit certain kinds of traffic to key areas, such as delivery trucks perhaps using Route A, or customers using Route B, and employees using Route C. Whatever routes you set up within your dealership yard, be sure that these are clearly marked and communicated for these to be effective. If these routes aren't marked or communicated, people will go through the most nearest or open route and you will not receive the benefits of having designated routes set up in your dealership yard. And pilot and escort vehicles can also be part of your traffic control plan on the highway. Actually, it was quite nice this week. I seen equipment being moved into the Farm Progress Show in Regina, and there were pilot and escort vehicles being used to assist in that process of getting the equipment to the Farm Progress Show. So that was really great to see. And recently I completed a webinar specifically on this topic, pilot and escort vehicle usage for equipment dealerships. So if you've missed that webinar, feel free to go to our website to check that webinar out for more information on pilot and escort vehicles usage, which is loaded on our website as well. And I know we went through a lot of different information of items that can be included in your traffic control plan and policies and forms and a lot of different information that you can utilize. So what we are doing for all the registrants for today's webinar, you will receive shortly after the conclusion of this webinar a sample traffic control safe work policy statement which you can utilize in your dealership. We also have a traffic control risk assessment form as well as a traffic control plan working template. So using these documents will really assist you in developing a traffic control plan and having a policy in place and assessing the risk of traffic control when your workers are exposed to vehicular traffic. So I encourage you to feel free to implement and utilize these samples that I will provide to you after the webinar this morning. And once I send you these samples, we just can't post the traffic control policy on our safety board and expect it to be rolled out effectively. We need to provide and offer training. So anytime we roll into our dealership a traffic control policy, a traffic control risk assessment form, or a traffic control plan, this information needs to be trained and clearly communicated for the staff at your dealership, as well as the devices or methods of traffic control being used. So if workers are in fact using flags or pilot cars or signage or signaling, they need to be trained on these methods or devices. And this training can happen right from the first time that they're onboarded at your dealership during their orientation. So this training can be included in an orientation. It can also be reviewed during a toolbox talk after they've been at your facility to ensure that it's being used effectively, these traffic control plans, and that they have a good understanding of it. And just to keep in mind, if you are seeking an outside agency to give you training on this information, just be sure that it comes from an approved training agency, such as the Flag Person course comes from an approved training agency, and most provincial safety councils offer that sort of course. Further to today's webinar on traffic control planning, we've decided to offer our Driving Defensively online course free for all attendees of today's webinar. And usually in all cases, all of our online courses are free for Saskatchewan members, but for any out-of-province member who are signed in or registered for today's webinar, they can also take our online course of Driving Defensively for free for the month of June. So if anyone who hasn't taken this course and is looking for it, it can be found on the online training tab of our website, which is www.motorsafety.ca, which is on the bottom of the slide. So feel free to enroll as many people within your dealership into this online course on Driving Defensively. And when you are filling out the registration form, it does ask for your company or school name. Please be sure you put in WIDA, and that will ensure that the registration goes through for free. And that's for the month of June, so I encourage you to take advantage of that. So as we get to the tail end of our webinar today, I encourage you to take action and challenge yourself on these items, such as to ensure that supply of high visibility clothing to workers is available, and workers who are exposed to vehicular traffic have that equipment of high visibility clothing so that it's worn and available to them. To take advantage of the information I'm going to send to you after the webinar on the traffic control safe work policy, the traffic control risk assessment form, and the traffic control plan. So to utilize that, you can feel free to tweak it or adjust it any way that you want to make it fit your dealership needs. They come in a Word document, so feel free to utilize and change that any way you see fit. And to take advantage of the free defensive driving course for the month of June only. And any of the information in today's webinar, be sure to pass that on, communicate it, and train it to the staff that are exposed to vehicular traffic and who are developing traffic control plans within equipment dealers. And all attendees of today's webinar will receive a webinar certificate, so feel free to put your name onto that certificate and print it and save it for your records that you've taken this information on traffic control planning. You'll also receive a short survey after today's webinar, which is important. That gives us feedback and how we're doing with webinars, and we always look for future topics. So any future topic of safety needs within your dealership will truly be welcomed as we roll out webinars for the Equipment Dealers Association. And with that being said, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time this morning to attend this traffic control planning webinar. And we'll leave my phone number on the screen as well as our website and email address. And if sometimes a question may come up down the road or you may have a call pertinent to this topic, so feel free to contact the Motor Safety Association and we'll be happy to help you with this information. Our next webinar is September 14th, and we are always looking for those topics of interest, so please feel free to provide us any topics that you are looking for a webinar on. So with that being said, I'm just going to go through and check to see if there are any questions that have been posted and see if there's any questions at this time. So it looks like I do have a question here that says, I noticed the talk was directed to agriculture only. Has this been discussed with all MSA members as it applied to tire shops, RV dealers, and car dealers, etc.? And yes, I could definitely say that the information has been passed on, and the information, why it was geared towards agricultural dealers is just for the sake of this webinar is that we work in conjunction with the Western Equipment Dealers Association, specifically when we roll out these webinars in partnership with them. But however, this completed webinar will be on YouTube, and we communicate it to all of our industry partners, such as the Auto Dealers Association, RV Dealers Association, and Western Canadian Tires Association. So we do share that information with all our industry partners. And looks like we have another question. Where can we get portable barriers? There are some various suppliers that do offer those barrier devices. I can look to see any specifics and pass this on to the person who generated the question. There are some various suppliers. I can't specifically promote or advocate for any supplier to show any favoritism, but I can definitely look and see and mentioned quite comfortably that any safety business that supplies safety devices or personal protective equipment that you currently work with would be one that would offer such equipment. So without me specifically promoting or endorsing any safety supplier or company, I could say that any company that you are purchasing safety equipment or supplies from would be a good supplier of portable barriers. And in fact, if they can't help you out, feel free to drop me an email afterwards if they aren't able to get that information to you. But I'm quite confident that most places will be able to. And I'm looking, I'm not seeing any further questions entered into the question box. So with that being said, I'd really like to thank you for taking the time to join us on this webinar this morning for traffic control planning for equipment dealers. This webinar will be posted onto our website, which will be on YouTube for future reference for other people to take advantage of and share. So I encourage you to do that. I've seen some dealerships have utilized our webinars in lunch and learn sessions. And that's always available with this webinar or any other webinar that we have on our website. So with that, I see there's no other questions. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to join this webinar, and I hope that everyone has a great day. Thank you.